Hey, how you doing? Medieval Part 2. We're going to pick it up performances during the late Middle Ages. They were outdoors. Once again, outdoors, no electricity, had to take care of stuff outside of the church and bring it to the people. Excuse me. Laymen played the roles. They brought in people, they had auditions, and they said, all right, I need you guys to do this, play this role. And it all started out as part of the Corpus Christi festival. Corpus Christi means the body of Christ. And this was a festival day that was 60 days after Easter. And they celebrated the body of Christ, the risen Christ. And what the Catholic Church would do, they would have a procession of the consecrated Eucharist and the consecrated wine. And they would have a procession that walked through the town. And this evolved into the church saying, hey, let's help tell the stories of the Bible. And that's where they got the different trade guilds to perform each of these plays and attach that to this procession, to where it became this big city celebration of Corpus Christi. And that was part of the Corpus Christi festival. They used pageant wagons. And we're talking about pageant wagons. They had no proscenium, as nobody had up until this time, or a framing device. You had fixed stages, which would set up in the middle of a town square, and they would have one platform in the front, and then they would have pieces slide in behind it to indicate place. I'm going to go over those in just a second. But they would, a fixed stage was one that was already sturdy, right there in the middle of the town square, and they were performing plays right there. And then the audience would come in around them, kind of like a thrust stage, and they would watch the play. That's a fixed stage, set against one side of the town square, used from 2 or 3 sides. Or they had movable stages. It was a wagon that moved, proceeded with the consecrated Eucharist and the wine, and people would follow or watch as they went by, kind of like Mardi Gras floats, what we have here in New Orleans. Mardi Gras floats, imagine if one of the parades, they were all different stories from the Bible, and they would go and they would follow. First would be Genesis, like Adam and Eve, and then work its way all the way. Each one of the floats corresponded to a story from the Bible, which would be pretty cool. But that's what this Corpus Christi festival was. They would start at about 5 o'clock in the morning, and they would run all day long. Also, once again, we're talking about Western Europe, and these plays that we're talking about, the Wakefield Cycle and York, these are English cities, and they're closer to the North Pole, which is kind of strange, only because they had longer periods of sunlight during the summer. So 60 days after Easter is usually going to fall sometime in June, right around the longest day of sunlight. So the sun would come up early and it would set late. So you had plenty of opportunity for your audience to view the plays, which is pretty cool. Where was I? Movable stages. The platea is the undifferentiated acting space. Just basically a space that the actors could move on, kind of like the orchestra, just nice and open to where people, there's nothing blocking the audience's view. Behind that platea was a scenic structure called the mansion, and in Noah and his sons, that mansion would probably be built to look like a ship, and you had trapdoors and stuff like that, but the mansion would be in the back and the platea would be in front, and that's where the actors would act on the platea. And then the mansion was used to indicate place, very similar to the skene hut. Inside of the mansion was the tiring house, which is where the actors went to change costumes, and then also where they would go in between scenes when they didn't have to be off stage. The machine loft is the area in the top of the mansion that was used for special effects. So we talked about with Noah and his sons, in the mansion, they'd probably have some kind of pipe of some sort, poke holes in it, and then they'd pour water in it, and then it would go through the tubes, and it would fall all over the stage and make it look like it's raining. And then they'd pull them in when it stopped raining. Cycle plays, once again, they were told in order, in sequence of the Bible. I'm not going to ask you what cities and how many they had, but just to give you an idea, the York cycle had 48 plays, the Chester cycle had 24 plays, the Wakefield cycle, from which Noah and his sons comes from, has 32. And then there's one that they don't know which city it came from that has 42 different plays. So you're in for a full day during the Corpus Christi Festival of these plays. Play structure was called a journey. That was the division of the play into 4 parts, the entire day into 4 different parts. And you'd have intermissions, sometimes from 1 hour up to about 24 hours. But you're all going to get them done within one day to show these different plays. That's the journey. So 4 different parts with a little bit of an intermission in between. Theater personnel, here we go again. Actors, all male. So whenever you read a play from the Romans, from the Greeks, from medieval, even in Noah and his sons, a man is playing Noah's wife. Only men were allowed on stage. The men played the female roles. And at this time you had one actor who was in charge of getting everyone else together and making sure they show up for rehearsal, that they know their lines, they're supposed to be there on time. Because you've got to show up at 5 o'clock. You start rolling at 5 o'clock, you got to get there earlier, make sure everything is in place. So they gave one actor a little bit more money to make sure that everything was taken care of, and also to coordinate the performance. And with that, we have, the emergence of the director. Once again, if you have any questions about this stuff, shoot me an email, give me a phone call. Vernacular drama was not limited to just the plays of the church. Other forms of drama include a farce, also known as a feast of fools. Farce we know today as anything that's done for laughs, and that's basically what we're talking about. A farce was a play that emphasized ridiculous and comically depraved aspects of human behavior. That's the definition from the book. But even if I say that, we don't know what it means, it's not going to help either one of us. So, made fun of what was going on, what people were doing, and kind of made fun of those things. They give a great example in the book that I'm going to read. Noah and his sons was not a farce. Here we go. Farce, a form of comic secular drama, began to emerge around the 13th century. But because the form was not officially encouraged, it remained a minor, though highly entertaining type, emphasizing the ridiculous and comically depraved aspects of human behavior. One of the best examples is Pierre Pétalin, an anonymous French farce that dramatizes the story of an impoverished lawyer who buys a piece of cloth from a merchant, whom he invites to dinner to receive his payment. When the merchant arrives, Pétalin is in bed, and his wife swears that he has not been out of the house. Pétalin pretends madness, beats the merchant, and drives him away without payment for the cloth. The story is loosely joined to a second one in which Pétalin agrees to defend a shepherd against the charge of stealing sheep. He counsels the shepherd that during the trial he should only answer, "Bah!" That's all he gets to say, no matter what anyone says to him. The accuser turns out to be the merchant, who creates total confusion during the proceedings by alternating charges against the shepherd and Pétalin. In view of this confusion and the shepherd's seeming feeble-mindedness, the judge dismisses the case. But when Pétalin tries to collect his fee, the shepherd runs away, calling, "Bah!" Like many farces, Pierre Pétalin shows clever knaves outwitting each other, but it adds a comic twist by having the seemingly stupid shepherd outwit the experienced lawyer. So that's basically, anything done for laughs. And that was going on, 700 years ago as well. What we have today in terms of farce, like your Adam Sandler movies, Chris Farley movies, some of your Seth Rogen movies, stuff like that. Jim Carrey, when he's not doing the serious stuff. Those are examples of farces. Also, we have interludes. An interlude was a non-religious play, series or comic, that was performed during the parts of a celebration. So if you're throwing a 7-course dinner, you got everybody in town is invited and it's great, and you want to throw down, you need something happening when people get there. So, have somebody come in and you have them play a musical instrument or sing a song. And then between the second and the third course, you have a magician come out and perform some tricks. And then you have, somebody come out and tell jokes. And you have somebody swallow fire or something, I don't know. But all these different variety of entertainments occurring within this one event. These little snippets of entertainment are interludes. And now we have the emergence with interludes. We have the emergence of the professional actor, because if somebody is throwing a celebration and they want to have somebody come and perform a monologue or sing a song or something like that, you're going to pay them some money. But somebody down the street might be throwing a party as well, and you have to figure out when they can, they want to get paid. They can do both of them. Somebody's going to pay them, enough money for the first. You can come and do the first interlude. And you come over to the other party, and you can do my third interlude, or and then you have actors trying to get paid, and you have the emergence of the actor for these different things, which is kind of cool. Amidst the diversity, the religious drama was the most important and characteristic form of drama during this time. The large cross-section of the populace and most fully embodied those concerns that the age idealized. The biblical vision of human history and destiny is what we come out at the end of this. That's what we're looking at. Please feel free, once again, shoot me an email, give me a phone call, and turn in your worksheets. All right, thanks.